Hey, what's up? This is Jeremy, and welcome to my series on making a drum and bass album on the Mate tracker in 2 weeks. I've decided to split this video up into 5 more digestible parts. The first video is going to be about the project creation and concepts, and then the samples I used and how I organized them to make them easier to find when I was in the heat of making music. The second is about starting projects, conceptually and technically, and then how I approached arrangement. The third video is all about bass sound design. The fourth is all about all the other sound design and programming builds. And then the final video will be about finishing the project, mixing, mastering, and time management. I hope you'll check out the album with the links in the video description, and I hope you find these videos helpful. Let's get started. Hello everybody, my name is Jeremy, this is Red Means Recording, and I just released an album. It's called Superstructures. It's made on the Mate tracker, and you can get it on Bandcamp. I'll probably have it up here on YouTube as well. If you buy it on Bandcamp, you get what are called the bundles for the Mate, which is this little device, which means that you can load my entire album onto your Mate and have fun with it, check out how it was made, remix it, I don't care, whatever you want to do. But even though you have access to the whole album, I would like to make a video going over some specifics of how I made this on the Mate, tips and tricks, things like that. So we'll be going over things like planning, samples, starting a track, arranging a track, sound design on the Mate, builds, effects, and then what we do afterwards when I got it into Ableton. Also a little bit of time management and some mastering. So pretty much the whole thing. Hopefully this video isn't too long, but if you feel like it is, go ahead and check the chapter markers to bounce around to where you want to go. And do, of course, please check out the album called Superstructures. It's mostly drum and bass. Link in the description. So let's start off by talking about what the Mate is. It is a tracker. It is made by a company called Dirty Wave, and Dirty Wave has always been really, really fantastic to work with. I love the creator, Tim. I love the community. Just a wonderful group and crew and vibe overall. Trackers are an old kind of way of making music in which things move down a vertical column like this. And you put note events in, and you put in velocity events in, and you put effects in. And we'll go over all that in a bit. I just wanted to sort of tell you what this was so that you understood what I was talking about when I was talking about the Mate. So let me talk to you a little bit about why this album came to be and how it came to be. I wanted to write a new album, and I wanted to write it on the Mate. And in the past, I have written 2 albums on the Mate, one called Rituals and one called Heart Sing. Both of them were started in Berlin when I went to Superbooth, walking around, just soaking up the energy of the city and sitting and making music where I wanted to. The hotel that I stayed at there, it was great. It's got this like area out back. You can drink, you can smoke. I just sat there and like used this thing to make an album. And I love that. I live out in the middle of nowhere here, and it's not really easy to walk places. And I needed to get away. So I decided to go to New York City and spend a week there walking around New York City and write pretty much every track, at least the beginning of every track. I tried to get them all as much done as I could while I was in New York City. When I flew back over the next week, I finished things up. I wrote one more track at home, mixed it, mastered it, got it out in about 2.5 to 3 weeks. That was the plan, and that's what I did. I find that walking is a really, really powerful tool for thinking about music, and being in a place where there's a lot of energy around you, you can soak up a lot of energy and kind of just like watch it go by. I know that famously Fred again has talked about liking to sit in train stations to work, and it's that same concept where you're there, there's motion, there's energy, and you kind of like let it inspire you. Why the Mate over something else? It is the most capable portable music making device that I have ever used. It fits in a pocket, it can go anywhere, huge long battery life on the Mark II right here, and it is insanely capable. Truly, if you can get along with the tracker workflow, it is the hands down best portable making music device that you can get, in my opinion. So it was a pair of FiO FH3 hi-fi earbuds and a prayer that I would make drum and bass, and I did. So thank you, drum and bass gods. So tracks were either made in parks. I spent a lot of time at Bryant Park, in the hotel room. I made some in Hudson Yard. In fact, the title and picture for the album was inspired by the Vessel, which is this weird art piece in Hudson Yard. Am I saying Hudson's Yard? Hudson Yards? I don't know if it's possessive or not. Sorry, Hudson. New York's obviously a amazing city. I'd say it's the best city in the United States, just from a city perspective. It's fucking great. When I got back, I had a week with my partner out of town, and that gave me a chance to kind of geek out and focus. And so I took that week to finish the tracks on the Mate, write one more track, the final track, You, and then export the stems, mix them in Ableton, master them in Ozone 12, and get them ready for the album. So that's the when, why, where, and who. Next up, we're going to talk about samples and planning what's on your SD card so that you can have the most success if you decide to do something like this. I'm going to go ahead and start a new project here. Then I'll go ahead and make a 10 here. These are called chains, and in a chain, you get phrases. I'll just go ahead and put 4 of the same phrase, and then I'll go over here and I'll make a note event and make a new instrument, and we'll go in here and make a sampler. So I'll go to load. Let's talk about samples. I have a big old card in here, and I put a lot of samples on here. Samples to me are the lifeblood of a lot of different types of music. And, you know, it's great if you have access to every single type of synthesizer in the world, or even just an insane synthesizer like Serum or Pigments. But on a device like this, even though the synth engines are really powerful, and we'll talk about those in a bit, samples, especially for drum and bass and jungle, you need good samples. And I wanted to make sure that I had everything that I could possibly want and more in the easiest way to find it. And that's what I'm going to show you about here. This may seem boring, but it really helped me be able to make the kind of music that I wanted to. One thing I'd like to point out, I just did this without even thinking about it. So if I go into my packs here, this is where I have my samples, you'll notice that this is not in alphabetical order. I even put those underscores there to try to get stuff to show up at the top. This uses a file system that doesn't think like that. And there's no real easy way, once you put stuff on the card, to get it to show up in alphabetical order all the time. Like, you can make it happen, and I'm going to show you how right now, but things will not show up in alphabetical order. They'll show up in how they arrived on the card. So to get stuff to show up in alphabetical order when you are in any folder on the Mate, you hold down Shift and press this button right here. It's Option. Shift and Option. I probably should use the names for these things. And that will get it to show up in order. So what do I have in here? Well, I have these folders with these underscores. These are some of my main folders: Arcade, Botanica, Drum and Bass, Jazz, NI, which is Native Instruments, Sony Vocals, and then these sort of random ones down here. So I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'm going to explain why they're here. Again, if this is boring to you, go ahead and skip forward. Arcade. This is made from sampling Output's Arcade instrument. It's a subscription-based sort of like multi-sampling instrument with all these like kind of ready-to-go sounds. And some of them are better than others, but I depended a lot on this specific one here called Distant Voices. These are sort of like chants and stuff. And I went through and I sampled Output Arcade and made all of these little chunks of it. And I relied on these for the tracks Fushigi and Last Rites quite a bit. I may have used them somewhere else too. They just have a really nice vibe. Oh, anyways, that is Output Arcade. I really like Output Arcade. I'd say if you were interested in it, what I would do is I would set aside some time, get it, find anything that looked interesting to you and sample it, and then use it in all of your stuff going forward without having to pay the subscription fee. It's a pretty awesome library, to be honest. Botanica, I plan on using these samples for part of Soft Music to Do Nothing to 3, which is a series of down-tempo albums that I've been making. But I decided to throw them on here too. These are all from Gumroad, from smaller sample pack creators. And I didn't really use a lot of these in the album. I just put them on here because I thought they were interesting and I might want to use them in the future. Fushigi, which I mentioned earlier, which is a track on the album, did use Botanica glitches in the beginning of it. You can hear them kind of swooping around in the breakdown sections. Drum and bass. So this is obviously the biggest folder on here. And you'll notice that I have a bunch of subdirectories in here that have things by type. And if you go down to the bottom here, you'll see the packs that I used. You can go ahead and pause on that if you want to. These packs here are stuff that I selected from my drum and bass folder on my home computer. And there's stuff that I rely on a lot. I'd say the ones that I use the most are Lesman Deep Soulful Drum and Bass, Decoded Drum and Bass from Sennheiser, and Easy Rollers, which is an older one. Do I even have an Easy Rollers? I don't. There's actually no Easy Rollers folder on here because what I did was I went into every single one of these packs and I took out the different sections that they have in there and put them into these categories: bass hits, drum loops, fills, effects, instrument loops, keys, other hits, pads and atmospheres, synth hits, synth loops, and vocals. So I gutted every single one of these packs and took their guts out and put them all into categories that if I decided I needed something specific, I could reach for that category. The only thing left that's in these main folders are the drum hits themselves from each one, because I felt that was like a better way to access them. So the reason I did this was I didn't want to have to like remember that like this particular pack had a particular section that I wanted. If I wanted a pad or atmosphere, I wanted all my pads and atmospheres for drum and bass in one folder. You can do this with anything you want. I did it with the Botanica stuff too when I brought it over to the Digitact. It's a lot easier than having all these commercial packs or all these packs that have like different folder structures in them and making it hard to remember like what belongs where or what is where. If I want drum loops, I got all my drum loops right here. Easy Rollers, this, if you can find Easy Rollers, I think it's on archive.org. I depended on this one a shit ton. Great loops. Everything from like classic breaks to really these rides and stuff like on top. Like these top loops are really useful for how I program drums. Another one that I depend on quite a bit is in this pack is the Cone Sound stuff. There is a pack called Cone Sound, K-O-A-N, acoustic something or other. Where'd it go? Yeah, TSP Cone. I think it's only on Splice. So I subscribed to Splice for like half a second and then grabbed it and then noped out of Splice. But these top loops here are really great for drum and bass. Just like perfect little rollers and shufflers. So I used a ton out of that. So Easy Rollers, Cone Sounds for drum loops. And then I use the decoded and Lesman stuff for my drum hits quite a bit. And then a little sleeper hit here, go back to the drum loops, is, I don't know when or how I found this, but at some point, Dogs on Acid, I think it's just dedicated to drum and bass, it's a forum. I found a file directory with like a ton of samples that they had shared or created amongst themselves. And one of them was this Amen pack, which just has like all these amazing versions of the Amen break. Just the best fucking Amen breaks I've ever heard. And that was a very helpful thing as well. That is my drum and bass folder. Jazz. These are two little like sample packs of jazz samples. Drum and bass and jazz have a very classic tradition with each other. They both are, you know, historically African-American music. They just go really well together, especially like thinking about like old Ronnie Size and stuff like that. So I knew that I wanted to include some jazz sounds, so I just put those on there. I didn't use them all that much. I think the Sauce and City Lights both have some stuff from there. Especially like the saxophone. Native Instruments. Okay, so this is a really interesting one to me. Maybe to you. I don't know. When you buy Native Instruments Expansion, which is their sort of like genre-specific pack thing, you will get a bunch of instruments and presets for various Native Instruments synths and things like battery and massive, stuff like that. But you'll also get a bunch of samples. So if you go into the expansions folder, you'll find a samples folder, and those you can use wherever you want. A lot of these are from expansions that I decided I might want to use. So I did the same thing that I did with the drum and bass stuff, where I went in, found the different like hierarchies of designations of sounds that are found in these packs. You know, you can see I decided drums, instruments, loops, one-shots. I'll tell you what previews in a second. That's a different thing. And then I gave a folder for each one of those in here. There's a lot of subfolders in here for each one, but they're you know, pretty well organized on their own, so I didn't need to worry about that. And again, this is really just so I don't have to think as much when I'm reaching for samples. I didn't use really hardly anything in here, to be honest. For the most used one is Rolling Tides. The drum loops and Rolling Tides, which is one of their drum and bass packs, are pretty good. Their breaks are really nice. You'll hear these all over. So good job on Rolling Tides. So yeah, probably the thing that people will know least about here is this previews folder. Within various parts of the Native Instruments ecosystem, you can go through a browser and preview sounds that you might want to load. And that includes synth presets as well. It happens in Contact, it happens in Complete Control, it happens in a variety of things. those are actually audio files. All of these preview wave files. And these, this is the massive one. This is just basses and massive. These make amazing one-shots, like fucking amazing. And like there's pads, there's like everything. So you have this massive, no pun intended, collection of one-shots to use in things like the Mate, your Digitakt, any sampler. They make really, really good fodder either just on their own or resynthesized using, subtractive synthesis techniques, more distortion, all that kind of stuff. So don't sleep on the previews that you have for your various software synthesizers. It's actually really, really huge library of stuff that you can find. Sony grew up making music on SoundForge Acid and then Sony Acid, and I just decided to go looking for some old SoundForge stuff, Sony Acid stuff, and these are two that I found, Ambient Atmospheres and Rhythms and Continental Drift Aftershocks. Continental Drift I used in Serpent a little bit, alongside the Rising Crescent Native Instruments expansion for that particular sound. Vocals. Okay, so there's a lot of vocals here. I didn't really use hardly any of them. If you want to know what vocals were used for each track, when they were used, you can go ahead and get the bundles from the Bandcamp download and paw through them yourself. Here are the packs. Again, you can pause and look if you want. I only used a few vocals from these. You got to be really careful with sample pack vocals because they can get really cheesy. And then a friend was saying that, like, when people hear tracks at parties that use sample pack vocals and they recognize them, they'll just kind of stop dancing because it's that cheesy. And most people aren't going to know. But at the same time, you don't want all of your tracks to be invalidated by the real heads because they know that it's just from a sample pack. I really love vocal drum and bass. I love it to death, and I wanted to make some. And so there's some packs here that I use. There's only a few ways to really deal with vocals on the Mate. One is they just work and you just hit them as one shots and you're good to go. The other is you repitch them to, up and down, old school sampler way, to get them to fit your track. That's difficult because sometimes you can end up in between pitches. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll combine that with slicing them, basically. I will slice up the phrase and trigger it exactly where I need to be, and I will put it each word where it needs to be with a start command, which is a command that says, hey, start the sample here in the middle of it somewhere on the phrase. But I'll show you real quick. One thing you can do, I'll just load this up. If I load up this go to edit. So here's the sound. So if for some reason, if I wanted to resequence this, what I could do is I could make a slice marker at each point of the thing. So here's slice marker 1, 2, I'm going to put right here. 2, I'll put right here. This is super arbitrary. You can zoom in if you use the right and left arrows. Cool, and then I'm going to go to overwrite. Yep, that's fine. So now it's just saved those markers into the vocal. And so now the way that slicing works is I'll go to slice and I'll go to file. So this is saying look at the splice points in the file. Go down to C1 where slices start. And now every slice is where I put it, and I can now resequence this vocal however I want, at least in terms of the timing of the starts of those notes. Repitching, slicing, and preparing on Ableton. And I did prepare some stuff on Ableton. The second to last track, called Let It Go, I prepared some guitars from Contact. I also prepared some vocals that I never used. It's been a minute. Do you remember? So that's vocals. Just threw a whole shit ton on there to see what stick, and a lot of it did not stick. But a few tracks have vocals and I like them. Chill Out Ambient Old School CD I didn't use. Expressive Chords. These are sampled from Ableton's Expressive Chords MIDI. Just a shit ton of nice little chords. Don't even know what chords they are, but they sound good. Playbox. This is an incredibly useful tool for me and an incredibly useful pack for me. Playbox is an instrument that Native Instruments has for Contact, and what it is a big sample library of various types of sounds. What happens is you pick chords or write chords, and each chord can have a layer of sounds. Each note in the chord is a possible layer, and each note layer can be a different type of sample. So every single one of your chords can be a completely different mix of sounds. I'll give you an example. Very, very different friends there in a lot of different ways. They're really, really, really great in the mate and anything where you can't easily create polyphonic material like chords. I use these so much, and sometimes they get really weird. Like, listen to that. So these sound really cool also with a bunch of distortion and reverb. What's that fucking shit? So I have depended on Playbox for all of my mate albums a ton, and I've spent a lot of time sampling it. It's one of my favorite tools to get inspiration from. As you can see here, I've got this huge pack of it. Should I release this as like a pack? Would you buy this like from me? Get like this giant pack of stuff? Oh yeah, these last two things. These I grabbed from Loopmasters after I realized that the track Miles High, which was the most Rasta dub inspired track, really desperately needed horns. And I grabbed these to put in there. So one of these has like horns. I can't remember which horns I used. And that's it. Those are the samples. Know what kind of music you're trying to produce. Know the width and breadth that you're trying to produce. Not only put samples on there that are useful to those genres and stuff, but go ahead and don't be afraid to move things around in such a way that it's easier for you to find them on the fly. The mate's all about speed to me. I move very fast with it. I want to be able to iterate my thoughts as quickly as possible. And if I have to search for samples, I start to lose that momentum. So I'm sure you've all been there trying to find that perfect snare. All right, so that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out the links in the video description for a link to the album, which contains the mate bundles for you to learn from. I'll also put a link to my mate bass pack and a link to the playlist for this and my other mate educational videos if you are interested in that. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.